How are we all doing, everyone? Hope you're all good. We are back with the Saltwater Aquarium. So if you haven't seen episode 1 and 2 of this, we set this up around 2 and a bit months ago, and it has been doing brilliantly. In the last episode, we added some corals and we added some shrimp. And in this episode, we are doing one of the most exciting things possible for this saltwater aquarium, and that is the maintenance, the cleaning, the tidying, the algaeing, the skimmer clean out. Oh, and fish. We're doing fish in this episode. They turn up next week, so we got to make sure this is ready. Testing, cleaning, yeah, let's get into it. I'll show you how it's all doing as well, because there's been a few changes, a few things have happened, and I think you all need to know. So really, the tank has done brilliantly. We've had very, very few issues. One little coral thing that I need to talk to you about in a minute and show you, because that was quite well, interesting. Let's call it interesting. But so far, in the last week and a half, I haven't cleaned it to show you what it looks like after you haven't algae scrubbed it and haven't done any real maintenance on it in that period of time. I've topped up water, so I've put some fresh RO in there to make sure that the salinity is staying stable, and I've fed them. Other than that, we have left it alone. Now let's talk about the corals first. So the zoas up on the rock there, doing brilliantly. You'll have to excuse the algae because, well, we'll get to that in a minute. But the zoas, the button polyps, been brilliant. They are looking great. The little green tree coral as well, other than the shrimps annoying it fairly often by standing on it and holding on to it, again, really good. It's bigger than it was. It polyps up, it extends, it's looking great. The mushroom coral, on the other hand, even though I thought I knew where it wanted to go, mushroom corals don't like a lot of flow, they don't like a lot of light, pick a little shady spot for it. It didn't like it. It wanted to move. So that has currently moved round the corner and has now stuck itself to a rock round the side. Now, not all corals do that. Mushrooms are one of the ones that do, though. So it has got up, it has gone for a wander, but it's now stuck, it's now pumped up, it's looking bigger than it ever has before. Currently, it's pointing away from the camera, which is really annoying, but overall, it has been looking great. All the other inverts in the tank, the snails, the crabs, everything like that, doing great. They've all been out and about. I cannot currently see any of them, but that's fine. That's no worries. They are in there. They are all doing well. I don't think there's much else to say other than we need to crack on with this maintenance, because I've got a lot of maintenance to do today. Some of it on film, some of it not, but I really want to get ready for these fish next week. Let's crack on. Let's get into this, and also, I'm just going to go find out why my dogs are barking. Now, first off, I'm just going to scrape all the algae off. This is a fairly regular occurrence, and you'll be glad to know I found my plastic algae scraper, which is good. You can use metal in a saltwater aquarium. The problem that you'll have is eventually you may find it will rust and start falling apart. So plastic ones, even though they're a little bit trickier to get everything clean, it is generally a safer option, especially for the longevity of your aquarium maintenance tools. Now, I think I've said it in most of my videos, but obviously when you're doing water changes and things like that, you always want to make sure that you're doing the scrubbing of the algae and anything that's going to kick up muck into the aquarium before you remove any water. The problem is, obviously, if you do this after you've done a water change, you've just put lovely fresh clean water in there, and then you scrape all this algae off and that makes the water look horrible again. So definitely do all your cleaning before doing your water change. Right, I think I have got the majority of the algae off. I will have probably missed some, and I'm not doing the sides and the back because honestly I don't know what other fish I'm going to be getting, and some of those fish might want to feed off of the algae on the side. I don't know yet, I'm not 100% sure, but those algae actually provide a home for a lot of the amphipods, copepods. Anyway, whatever they're called, they provide a home for all the microscopic organisms that will call your aquarium home. So I'm going to leave the back, leave the side for the minute, but next I do want to do a water change on the aquarium. As I've said, I don't want to disturb that gravel too much. I might give it a swish around where this green patch is, but again, the hermit crabs, the snails, my sand sifting snail that I got last time is all food for them. So I don't really want to disturb it too much. This is a proper little rockpool ecosystem that I'm trying to make, but we do need to clean those filter sponges and make sure they're okay. So a bucket of old tank water, wherever my little bucket has gone, and put that away as well. I'm going to wash that off actually. Don't ever leave your tools covered in salt water. Now I am going to use a gravel cleaner on this tank quickly because there is one spot in here which is growing green algae in a little circle. Now that said to me that there is something there that is feeding that algae. It's not necessarily light because the light's not any more intense there than it is in the rest of the aquarium. What it probably means is it's a bit of a sort of dead spot in the aquarium. The water's circulating around and that is where all of the poop, uneaten food, coral waste, whatever, that's where it's dropping, or that's where there's a lack of flow and it is ending up. Now I can move my little circulation pump there and that will give us a bit of a helping hand later date, but for the minute we will do a little gravel clean, a little water change, and then clean our filter sponges. It's actually not as mucky as I thought it was going to be. I've got one bucket of water saved now for when we do our filter cleaning in a minute, but actually most of that is just sand particles. There wasn't any like real poop down there. You can tell the difference when you've been working in the hobby as long as me. You can see sand particles compared to like waste, because the waste is a lot thinner and it sort of clouds the water a lot more, whereas this is actual particles. But we're going to let that clear. We'll let the filter pull that through because I've not drained out too much water that the filter's stopped. So we'll let the filter pull that through, and while we're waiting for that, we'll mix up some salt water ready to go back in here. Now, depending on the type of salt you are using and the size of your aquarium and a fair few variables, it depends on how you want to mix up salt water. I used to mix it up by the 25-litre barrel full. So I had one of these, but bigger. This is a 10-litre one that I use for that tank. And I used to mix those up ready the day before so that I was ready to do my water change. Now today I'm going to be showing you how to obviously mix your salt water and get it ready. So we're not going to be using 10 litres because I really don't need that much. All I need is 2 litres, which is what I've just drained out of that aquarium. Now, depending on the brand of salt that you use, it can change the amount of time you need to leave it between, well, mixing it and actually being able to use it inside your aquarium. Now, luckily, I use Tropic Marine's Reef salt, which I've used for years and get on with it really, really well. Now, the good thing with this is pretty much as soon as it's dissolved into your RO water and it's up to temperature, and you've obviously tested it to make sure it's the right salinity, you are ready to use it in your aquarium. Now, as a rule, I'll normally leave it for a few hours to check that everything is spot on. There's no, residue left in the bottom, so on and so on. But it is good to try and get a salt that is easy to use like that. So it's really simple to mix up this salt. It's 37 grams per litre. Now, I did say I was going to do 2, but I think I'm going to do 3 litres, just so I've got a backup litre, just in case I need it. It's not the end of the world. So what did I say? 111. 111 grams. Ah, so close, but so far. That made it worse. Now, all joking aside, 37 grams is actually an approximate. You can go up to about 40 grams per litre and still be within the right markers. So let's chuck that in our mixing bucket. Don't need them anymore, but we do need my barrel of RO and my jug. Right, so what did I say? 3 litres. So these jugs are 2. That was an ambitious first pour. That could have gone terribly wrong. Right, 1. And a half. Now, to get the salt water ready and mixed, I've just got a little internal filter pump and a little heater that will just sling in the bottom. Make sure they're both covered by water, and then we can turn that on and just leave that water to mix for the next maybe hour or so while we get on with the next job. So I've got my bucket of old tank water that we can chuck all the sponges and media into. Now, let's just lift the protein skimmer up and out the way for a second. You go around there, and we should be able to get into all of our sponges. There we go. The one other thing that is hidden in the back of this filter is some biological media in the way of these ceramic rings. Now, they don't need a mega clean out. That is just where your bacteria is going to be living, so you don't need to like jet wash them and make them pristine. They just need a quick swill in old tank water. Now, as I say, those ceramic rings can just have a quick flush out and then pop them back in. And then the sponge and the floss is where all the detritus is really going to have been caught. And again, we've not got a lot in this tank. It's only those shrimps and the crabs, so it shouldn't be a great deal. It's probably mostly sand particles, but at least this will give them a good clean out, ready for when we get the fish next week. Now, the foam cleaned out relatively well and is fairly clean, but the floss didn't clean up that well. So we are actually just going to be using some fresh filter floss in the back compartment because it's cheap enough to replace, and I just don't want that muck going back in the aquarium. Right, on to the skimmer. Now, because there's not much in this tank yet, the skimmer hasn't really had to do a great deal, but I want to take it out and show you how much muck it has built up in the short amount of time that it's been in there. Now, as you can see on this skimmer cup, where the bubbles have been rising up through that center cone, where they have popped, this is not the nicest thing to do, but I want to show you. They have built up that amount of waste. So obviously once there's fish in here and they actually start properly going to the toilet, this skimmer will be worth its weight in gold because it is going to keep that tank so clean. Now, just give that skimmer a quick wash out in some RO water to make sure it's clean. You probably could use tap, to be fair, but I'm just being silly and overcautious, to be honest. There we go. One clean skimmer cup. One thing you will find is the lid will eventually start building up a residue, so it's worth cleaning that out too. But again, for the minute, this skimmer's not had to work that hard. So that one can go back on there like so. Lid back on. And away we go. The one thing I haven't cleaned out in this episode is the pump that actually churns the water around the aquarium. Now, to be honest, the reason for that is they don't need cleaning that often. I can actually see it at the bottom of here, and it is fairly clean. There's no real detritus. All the detritus has been caught by those sponges, but certainly if the flow started to slow down, or I don't know, I was having a look and things just weren't looking right, it would be something I'd check, because the more flow rate you've got, the better. But we're going to leave that for the minute, get these turned back on, and well, probably leave the salt water for a bit to mix. So that is most of the maintenance done, other than topping it up with that salt water that I've got mixing. But it's lunchtime, so I'm going to go and grab some food and let that salt water warm up and mix for a little bit longer. Then, when we get back, we'll pour that in, we'll finish up, and then it'll be fish time, which is super exciting. We are back from lunch, and I need to check the salt water that we have been mixing up. So we've got our trusty refractometer. Where's the light? We're aiming for a salinity of about 1.025 to 27, depending on what you're aiming for. And we have absolutely nailed that. Now, I've tried to do this a few times in the past, and it's worked sometimes and not others. There you go. So can you see blue meets white, or white means light blue, and whatever, light blue meets dark blue. That's what I was trying to say. Where that line is, that is where your salinity is. And we are pretty much spot on 1.025. Yeah, so we are ready to use this salt water. There's no salt residue left in the bottom of the bucket. We are ready to go. Now, this is actually quite a small water change for this aquarium. It's only a couple of litres, and that being a 48-ish litre aquarium before you've got rocks in it, means that this is only about a 5% water change. Yeah, 5% water change. Had to think about that then for a minute. But I have been doing little and often on here, keeping it topped up, keeping it happy. And obviously there isn't a great deal of stock in here. Once I've got more fish in here and we're putting more food in here, then I'll probably up the water changes to maybe around 10%, something like that. But every tank is different. Everyone's stocking levels are different. You really need to work out what you're going to do on your tank. Now, me being a bit of a plonker, I did put this tank on my shelf, which does mean accessing it is a little bit tricky sometimes. but we're okay. We can still get in there. Now I have checked that all of the temperatures are correct in the bucket, so we're up to the right temperature, and I've also checked that there's no salt residue left in the bottom of the bucket, because if there is any undissolved salt, then chucking it into the aquarium where you've got corals and fish and shrimp can be disastrous. So I am just going to pour this in gently. I'll take a little bit of time because small aquariums like this can obviously swing a lot quicker when it comes to adding water. So doing it slowly and taking it a bit slower and being methodical about it is way easier. But we'll just get that water level up back to our like honeycomb design on this tank. And then, well, actually, I think that's it. Now what I will do to this tank after doing the water change is just pop some Acclimatizing Satus in there. The good thing with this is that it will just help boost the bacteria levels in the aquarium, as long as you don't pour it on your hand and the floor. But where I've given all the filters a bit of a wash out and a bit of a clean out and unsettled all that bacteria, that will just help recolonize it. There's going to be loads of bacteria on the rocks, but for the few pennies it costs to dose that, I think it's just worth it. So yeah, I've had a quick think, and I think that is everything I needed to get done on this tank today before we go and pick up our fish next week. Now, I was going to test the water with my test kit, but actually I've just done a water change, so there's not really any need to test for any of that. Everyone in the tank is looking fine, and that is not an indication that the water is fine, but I've been testing this tank regularly for the last 6, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it's been. And so I know what's going on in the aquarium. It will actually be more beneficial for me to test the water a day or two before I go and pick up the fish, because that is going to be a reading that is ready then for the fish. So we'll do that in the next 10, 15, 20 seconds once we skip forward a week. But that is it. We will be back in a week's time. And for you, it will be 10 seconds to go and pick up our fish from TMC in London. So can't wait to get fish in here. I'm so excited. We are here. Tomorrow is the day that I head over. No, it's not. It's the next day after tomorrow. It's 2 days' time, because I'm going to NT Labs first to do some filming with them. Then I go to the Tropical Marine Centre in London to go and do a load of filming for saltwater stuff and yeah, all sorts of other bits. So watch out for that coming in the future. But I have just checked everything in my test kit. So I've just checked through my ammonia, nitrite, nitrate and pH with that test kit. Everything is looking absolutely fine. And then I did just go through KH, magnesium, calcium and phosphate on that one. Just when I said so few corals in there and so little food going in there, I knew that those ones are going to be all right with the little water changes I've been doing. But I did film it. And I've just realised that it's quite a lot of filming, and by the time I've spoken you through everything and how to test and how to do and reading the numbers and blah, 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 it's actually a video in itself. The test kits are really simple to use, so if you are doing them, the NT Labs test kits have very easy instructions. You just follow the colours and yeah, so on. But by the time I'd actually spoken about what levels you're aiming for and what you want to do, it's actually its own little video. So I'm going to be doing a testing saltwater aquarium video on its own, but I just wanted to give you that update 2 days before we go to TMC to show you what's going on. So yeah, fast forward to 2 days time, possibly 3 days time by the time I get back, because it's a 3-hour drive, and I should have a box of fish in this hand. Should we do a cool, do you reckon it'll work? I'll see you in 2 days time. We have made it back with a box of fish. It's not that big a box, and a couple of corals as well. So let me pop these over here. Now, I have just spent the last 2 days on the other side of the country, essentially. One day with NT Labs, filming tons of content for their channel, so watch out for those videos and bits and pieces coming on my channel and their channel, mostly on their channel, over the next few weeks and months. And then the second day I spent at the Tropical Marine Centre in London. I keep wanting to say Bristol because the old branch that I used to visit many years ago was in Bristol. TMC, Tropical Marine Centre in London. Now, they are one of the biggest wholesalers for the aquatic trade in the UK for saltwater fish, corals, crabs, inverts, you name it. They do it there. And it is an amazing place that I've visited several times now. but I was lucky enough that they allowed me to go and film some content there. So I have got loads of footage for future, like beginner friendly fish videos and invert videos and a little tour and all sorts of stuff that I have to compile into some videos and get out for all of you to watch. And it's going to be great. And I'm hoping to go up there again and we'll do some more filming. Yesterday was a bit of a trial run, first time. Yeah, it was brilliant. But anyway, that being said, we got lots of stuff done yesterday, but now is today and I need to get the fish and the corals acclimatized to this tank. We've got some cool stuff. We've got one that might be a little bit tricky, but we'll discuss that in a second. Now, as I say, Tropical Marine Centre is trade only. So if you've got an aquarium shop in the UK, you can visit them. But unfortunately, if you are a hobbyist at home, then you do have to go through your local retailer. But there is a way you can do that actually, which I was discussing with them when I was there. Now, if you have kept a saltwater aquarium at any point in the UK over the last, well, however many years, the likelihood of it is something or most of the things in your aquarium will have come through the Tropical Marine Centre at some point. Now, as I say, you can't go there as a customer, like a hobbyist, but the cool thing is if you go on their website, you can see like their stock list. So it will show you their angelfish and their gobies and their blennies and all of that sort of stuff. And then you can click a button and you can request a quote from your local shop for how much that angelfish or, you know, tang or whatever will cost for you to buy it from your local shop. So you can almost shop what they have in Tropical Marine Centre via your local store, which is very, very clever. The other thing that they've just recently released as well is like a dry goods thing. So if there's a pump you want from TMC, you can essentially order it and then it gets delivered to your local store of choice with their normal dry goods, and the store still gets the money for it and you're still supporting your local store, but it might be something that they don't stock. I didn't wrap my head around it fully because I've had a 3-hour drive and I've slept since then, but it seemed a very clever way. So head over to the Tropical Marine Centre website if you want to check it out. But I've got to get this stuff acclimatizing. Now, I've actually just realised that I'm going to need a couple of different containers for these because there's something quite important that can happen with saltwater animals, and that is some shops will treat their fish systems with treatments. You know, standard practice in aquarium shops throughout the world, throughout the UK, that you treat the fish and make sure they're absolutely safe. Now, the thing is with that is a lot of corals, I say a lot, corals, shrimps, crabs, all of that, don't often like a lot of the treatments that are used. They don't tend to get on very well with them. So I know that in this box I have got some fish that came off the fish system that will possibly have treatment in. So they have to go in one bucket to be acclimatized. And then I got some corals, which again will have come off the invert or coral system, and they will be on a different water with no treatment in them. There will be possibly different salinities and things like that. So when buying saltwater or marine animals from your local shop, it's well worth checking, because if you get home with 2 or 3 bags of different things, it might be the case that those 2 or 3 bags have come off of different systems, different salinities, different treatment regimes. It is well worth thinking about. Now, one thing I do want to do before I start acclimatizing them is to actually check the temperature of these bags. Now, I did get these yesterday, but I kept the box in my fish room overnight. So in theory, it shouldn't have lost any temperature. This is just a like meat thermometer from Amazon. It's nothing fancy. We are running at 25.2. So we've not lost any temperature in the box overnight, which is ideal. We just need to focus on acclimatizing them for salinity and all of the different things. So a simple drip acclimatization should work a treat. Now, what I think we'll do is we'll actually put the corals into the big bucket because there is more water and more of them. And as I was saying, one of the fish needs to go in with them, which is the fish that I need to keep an eye on. Can you see him? He is the one I'm a little bit worried about with regards to going into this tank, but I think I'll be okay. And then in the other bucket, we will put our 3 little dinky fish to go into this tank. Now, one thing I will say is if you were stocking this aquarium at home, I'd recommend to go a lot slower than what I'm doing here. Obviously, I have been doing this for years and years and years, and this is my job. I am in this fish garage every day, and I look in this tank probably 100 times a day as I'm walking past it. So if anything hiccups, if anything happens, I am here 24/7 working on these tanks. So there is no worries. I've also got a little bit of an addition to this tank in the way that I went and saw a friend who has a very large reef tank and it's been running for many, many years. And we'll be visiting him in a future episode because he's offered me some coral frags, but after these corals I'm not sure there's space, so I think we'll have to set up another tank. But anyway, I got him to place some biomedia into his sump for me. So we have now got some very, very mature biomedia from a very, very old reef tank. So yeah, that will be going in the back of the filter before all of these fish go in and will help us seed it. And then the other product that I've got going into this aquarium as a safety net is Optimus and Satus. Now, Optimus is a great product because it detoxifies ammonia. It's weird, the science behind it, but it essentially binds to the ammonia and makes the ammonia too big to pass through the fish's gills. Very, very strange. It was very scientific when I got explained it. And then Satus is a live bacteria with a new bacteria in there that is essentially really fast acting, and I have set up all my aquariums on this stuff and it is insane. I was part of the testing for this probably nearly a year ago now. Yeah, probably nearly a year ago, and it's insane stuff. So between all of those things, I've got no worries about putting all of these fish in here, but if you're doing it at home, take it slow. It's way easier to take it slow. So first up for acclimatization are these 3 little bags here. Now each one of these houses a little blenny / goby. Oh my word, look at them. Now we've actually gone for single specimens on most of these just to keep infighting down. Generally in a bigger tank you'll be fine to maybe partner some of them up or keep them in little groups, but in tanks that are a little bit smaller it's actually better to keep a lot of them solitary. But there's so many species out there, it's always worth doing your research and finding out what is best for them. You might even sometimes be able to pick up pairs. It's like actually paired pairs, yeah, you know what I meant, from shops, which is always a good thing. But yeah, really it's working out what species you're going to be going for and what is going to be best for them. But for this, we've gone 3 individual species, and I can't say any one of them is my favorite. They are all so, so cool. Right, last one into the bucket. And of course it's the one that's going to stay in the bag. There we go. So you may be able to see all 3 of them in here, but on the far side here we've got a yellow goby. The one that's swinging around that's just there, that's a barnacle blenny. I've had them before in the shop, and even though they're called a barnacle blenny, the last time I had them, I had a group of them and they all ignored the barnacles I put in there. So I haven't got barnacles for him yet, but if he does look like he's searching for them, I will get some. And then lastly, we've got a little neon goby. Now I'm not 100% sure what species that was because Sam at TMC picked him out for me, and some of them are blue, some of them are yellow, and he's a little bit stroppy at the moment, so he's lost his colour. I think he's going to be a yellow-headed one, but we'll see once they settle in. Now in the other bucket we have got all of our corals and the one fish that I'm a little bit going to have to keep an eye on. And all of these corals in here are all really easy to keep soft corals. So we're not going for anything difficult. We are going all simple, all standard, because that is what I want to show off. But I'll be honest, I am already planning my next bigger reef or fish only, or I'm not sure, saltwater aquarium, let's call it that. Because I'll be totally honest with you, having fun with this and having fun with freshwater, I just want to show it all off. Oh, that's, I think, a clove polyp that he's put in there. And then lastly is the fish that I have wanted forever. This is like probably one of my holy grail fish that I've never, ever kept. But I think it's going to be a struggle for you all to see him in there. I call it him, for them to be seen in there. So we're going to have to get them acclimatized, and then I can show you all what it is. Now I have only got one of my fancy drip lines that there was a lot of you mocking me in the comments last time because you were like, it's just an IV drip thing, Matt. What are you? I was excited, okay? I was excited. It's cool. But yeah, all joking aside, I've only got one, so I'm going to use that on the 3 gobies. No, 2 gobies and a blenny. Use that on there, and then for the other one, I'm going to find a piece of airline and we'll make our own makeshift IV line dropper, but just not with the fanciness. I'll just tie a knot in it. Now in theory I just press that a few times and that will start the suction through, and then I can put it down in the bucket. There we go. Right, that's that one dripping in. Lock it in place with the handle. Right, then I need to make one for this other bucket. Right, so this one's a little bit more DIY. It still works, it's just not as good. So we'll lock it in underneath the lid and then bring it over to this bucket where I do that off of camera. And then I can tie a little knot in it and make sure the drips are running at a suitable level. There we go, to get these guys and girls and corals acclimatized. Now I'm going to give these two buckets probably 45 minutes or so, at least half an hour to start with, and then I will check the salinity in both the buckets compared to the salinity in the aquarium. Obviously I know the temperature's all good from testing it earlier, so pretty much we are just working on salinity now. So yeah, we'll let them drip, we'll let them settle, and I'll bring you back in the next 10 seconds. Well, which will be 45 minutes for me, but the next 10 seconds for you, where we can get them into the tank. And I'll talk to you all about why I've got to keep an eye on the one that's living with the corals. We are back, and the corals and the fish have had roughly about 45 minutes. No, just over 45 minutes actually, to acclimatize. So I've checked the salinity with the refractometer. Looked like a pirate for all of 30 seconds and everything is the same. So we are ready to net out, but I am going to turn the lighting down in a second just to make sure that this is a stress-free introduction for the fish. I don't think it's going to be stress-free for me though. Now, so I don't stress the fish out anymore, what I'm going to do is we're going to do the coral placement first. Now there might be one or two that I'll have to glue or stick, but for the minute I'm just going to place to check that they're happy with where they are. So first up, we have a toadstool coral. So these are a big, soft coral, quite easy to grow, generally quite easy to sort of propagate. And I want that one to sit down in there, in that gap, because that should grow up quite nice there, and that fits an absolute dream. Now next up, I like that so much, I got another piece of like a tree coral. So it's a slightly different color to my original one, but I'm hoping to be able to wedge that in behind those rocks. And then it will grow up as a bit of a sort of backdrop to the aquarium, I'm hoping. Now next up, I've got a little finger coral. So this one, I'm hoping will actually like going where the old mushroom rock is. So we'll just chuck that mushroom rock round the back for the minute. We can use that at a later date if need be. And I'm hoping this one will just sit in this gap because it's got quite a big rock on the bottom of it. And then that one can stay there, I'm hoping. It is a little bit floaty, so this one might need to be one that will eventually need to be glued, but we shall see. I think it will be all right. None of the fish are major movers, and we haven't got anything big that likes moving stuff in here yet. And then last but not least, we have got a nice bit of clove pollet, which sort of looks like flowers, looks like daisies once they're settled. Put that one there, and that will grow up and over that rock. At least that's what I'm hoping for. That sits in quite nicely there. Now what I'm going to do when it comes to the fish is actually turn the lights onto their blue setting. That way I can introduce the fish into a darker environment and we can give them a bit of time to settle into their new tank. So we'll get our three small little chaps in there first. The first of which is our little yellow goby, which are known as coral globies or clown gobies, I think. There's lots of different names for them. Second up, we've got the little neon goby. I'll be intrigued to see what colour that one turns out to be once it settles. Can definitely see a bit of yellow in the head. And then last out of the small bucket is my little barnacle blenny. There we go. Now the last fish that's going in here is a little tank bred orchid dottyback. Now The problem that I have with dottybacks is, well, if you're from the freshwater side of things, they're a little bit like a betta. You never quite know what temperament you're going to get with them. I have had people keep orchid dottybacks with like loads of small little inverts, never bats an eyelid at them, doesn't even bother them. I've had other orchid dottybacks that are psychopaths. This one I watched in TMC for quite some time and seemed like it was fairly chilled out and seemed like it was fairly good. But what I've actually been doing, which I haven't said in the course of this video, is I've actually set up a 65-litre quarantine saltwater aquarium just in case. So if I do need to catch this little chap out because he's causing problems with my hermits or my shrimp or anything like that, then I can. The good thing is my shrimp that are in here are actually about double the size of this guy's head. So I don't think I'll have too many issues. The main issue I'm going to have though is catching the silly thing out of this bucket with the smallest net in history. Right, I've got it. Katie and Quinn are gonna freak when they see that little chap in there. Straight into the rockwork. Never to be seen again. We are back with the marine tank, and honestly it's been a couple of days. I wanted to make sure that everything and everyone in here settled in well, and so far so good. I have been checking regularly with my water quality on the test kit and nothing at all has hiccuped. And it took a day or so, but every fish that went in here has now settled in and found a home. The funniest one is probably the orchid dottyback, because at first it was living in the big cave on the right hand side, and now it started digging underneath the big structure and has actually created its own cave system underneath that big rock. So I do have to be careful moving or placing corals on that now, just in case I, well, squish him is probably the best way. But he's been the most reclusive fish out of the lot, shooting out and like coming out to sea, but always going back when I get too close to the aquarium. Whereas all the other fish, the two gobies and the blenny, solid. Don't even care if I'm sat there or doing anything. The little neon goby comes up to the glass, the yellow goby comes up to the glass. They really don't care. The blenny is the fastest thing I have ever seen. I do not remember barnacle blennies eating that quickly. Like piece of mysis shrimp or brine shrimp or a pellet will float past him and bang, gone. Like he is just ultimately fast. But yeah, everyone is doing really, really well. And then when it comes to the corals, they seem to have settled in really, really well as well. You've got the clove polyp up the top that's polyping up really, really nicely. It's actually been grabbing bits of mysis shrimp out of the water when I've been feeding the fish. So that's doing really well. And a small piece of it fell off, which I've jammed up in the top of the rock. It doesn't get as much light up there, so I'm hoping it'll grow towards the light across the top of that rock eventually, but by which time I'll have probably found another coral I want to buy for this tank. The finger coral at the front, just so cool. It was a bit sort of upset for the first couple of days and kept lying over. So now it's pumped up, it's all polyped up, and our two shrimp have moved in and are now living in that. So again, really, really cool. The toadstool's done well. It hasn't fully polyped up yet. It's sort of semi-polyped up, but it is getting there. It has settled. It's sort of standing upright. The one main problem we have had is the other green finger coral at the back. Now, that has unfortunately fallen off a couple of times because it just didn't want to stay. I tried gluing it, I tried messing around with it, tried to wedge it, it just didn't want to stay where I wanted it to stay. So it's now stayed in that location for a day or so, I think. So I'm hoping it is settled and it's going to stay where it is now, at least fingers crossed. Now, one thing I completely forgot to do when putting these corals in, and I'll hold my hands up to it. In episode 2, I said how important it is, you know, it's probably worth dipping your corals just in case any beasts or problems or anything like that is on them. Obviously, I got these from TMC, so I highly doubt there's anything on there, but you never, ever know. It's always better to be cautious, and I completely forgot to dip the corals. So at about 10 o'clock that night, I was sort of tinkering and watching the lights go down and the blue lights came on and I remembered. I was like, right, fine. So I did actually coral dip them that night. I was on the fence as to, do I stress them out and grab them out of the tank and coral dip them, or do I just leave them in the tank? And There was no real right answer. By that time, they'd been in the tank for a couple of hours. Anything on them possibly would have vacated and wandered around the tank anyway. So it was what it was. I thought, do you know what? I will do it just to be safe. But yeah, I do have to remember this. It's been a long time since I've kept salt water. So yeah, it is getting it back into my mind. Now, when it comes to fish stocking levels, what we've got in here now is enough. That is going to be all the fish we are going to get in here. That little orchid dotty back, as it grows, will probably be a bit oversized for this aquarium, but that is absolutely fine. I plan to upgrade this tank sometime in the very, very near future, or not even upgrade this, get a second saltwater aquarium, which maybe we'll change it up a little bit. Maybe we'll do some different corals or something. But anyway, that's a future project. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. It is certainly getting there. We've still got a long way to go. We've still got the corals to grow in. We've still got more space for more corals that will hopefully cross my path over the next few weeks and months. So yeah, be sure to follow along, hit that subscribe button, and then comment as to, well, what you would like to see next. Do you want to see a bigger one, or do you want me to just focus all my attention on this one? We do also have to set up the RO system, and I also need to make that video about testing a saltwater tank. So lots and lots to come. Oh, and I've done all the filming. It's, well, my word, so much saltwater stuff that I need to get edited. But if you're a freshwater person, still lots of freshwater stuff to come, because I've got my big tank and the cleanup crew needs to go in there. Well, more cleanup crew needs to go in there, and then I need to edit it all. So anyway, follow along, make sure you subscribe. Love you all. I will see you all in the next one.